Integrated watches are all the rage these days. Every brand, their sister, their cousin, and their estranged uncle has an integrated bracelet option in their lineup. Picking one should be as easy as choosing the one you like, but you might not be all the way down the watch enthusiast rabbit hole. So for you, maybe you only know one or two, a Rolex, a Tudor, an IWC maybe. You want to know what the other options are out there. You want a one-stop shop of options and some info on why to maybe choose one over the other. That's this video. An overview of some of the best options for integrated bracelets at all price points. Let's dive in. We are starting with the relatively speaking more affordable range with a watch from a heritage brand, Tissot, and their PRX line. Tissot offer multiple options of the PRX. There are steel options, there are gold-plated options, there's a carbon options, and movement-wise there are both quartz and mechanical versions. The design itself is leaning to the classy, more formal side of things. The case and bracelet have a vertically brushed finish, which has the advantage of not being overly shiny. Cheaper watches sometimes tend to come with heavily polished cases and tons of gold accents to make them look premium. Tissot don't go that route. They opt instead for something that is elegant and versatile. The finish also allows for the watch to work in most settings. Whether you choose the mechanical or the quartz movement shouldn't be down to the movement itself. The mechanical movement inside is good, but at this level, it's not some sort of high horology meaningful movement. But on the mechanical movement models, you have more dial options. The quartz has got some good sunray dials, but the mechanical movements have patterned waffle style dials and all sorts of other, intricate details. It's a matter of preference what you like at the end of the day, but that tiny bit extra detail on the dials is what sort of raises the premium feel of the watch. Now, if there's a reason for you to not buy this watch, it would be that it has been incredibly popular. It has been a smash hit for Tissot, and if you'd prefer to not do what a lot of other people do, then the PRX is not the way to go. But in this price point, it is simply one of the best put together and most solid integrated options out there. All the way up from $600-800 for the PRX to a $13,000-14,000 Rolex. Rolex too have an option that was launched in 2025. Rolex are late to the game when it comes to integrated bracelet watches, but you can't fault them for execution. This Rolex Land Dweller has a lot going for it. The design itself is a mix of historical options back from the 70s, including the oyster quartz. The model they released has a couple of selling points. Just like the Datejust and the Day-Date, it has the signature Rolex fluted bezel. The number of facets are different compared to those other two watches, but just like them, the fluted bezel has a light play like no other watch on the market. The first time you sit in your car on a summer's day and you notice this ring and specks of light on the roof of your car is a thing to behold. I guarantee you, you will be rolling your wrist to those reflections moving around the car interior for sure. The second selling point is that the movement is a massive step up for Rolex. It's a 5 Hz movement, which gives a sweep of the seconds hands, which is something to behold as well. It's noticeably smoother than any 4 Hz movement, and it's one of those things that watch nerds geek out about. The movement itself is an innovation in itself in all sorts of other ways that make it cooler than most other Rolex movements. The watch also has a unique dial, which is a first for Rolex. And finally, it's a pretty good looking watch, and of course, for some people, it's a Rolex. That's, whether you like it or not, a selling point for a lot of people. Now, why wouldn't you get this kind of watch? Well, honestly, if you're a first-time buyer, there's no way you're getting hold of this watch. It's still relatively limited in production, and the odds of a newbie skipping the queue at the AD are slim to none. That's, of course, unless you're willing to buy $20,000 to $30,000 worth of jewelry on top to build a relationship with the AD. Another reason not to buy? Just not being interested in Rolex. Like the PRX, it's a safe and predictable luxury choice, and maybe that just isn't you. Citizen make a sub $500 integrated bracelet watch. It's mechanical, it's solidly put together, it's good looking. There are 3 versions to choose from, a 37mm option, a 40mm option, and a small seconds hands option. All models are mechanical, all models go for I'm going to call it a classier and flashier look than the PRX. This is down to a bracelet that has polished center links, which is reminiscent of a Day-Date type bracelet. The bezel itself is also polished and a little bit more prominent, which gives it that flashier feel. The movement is a step below the mechanical one in a Tissot PRX, but make no mistake, it's a decent, reliable movement from Citizen. The dials on the base Suyosas are playful, they're colorful. These watches are aimed at a younger and livelier audience. The small seconds model is the upgrade option. It's got a better movement with more power reserve. There are subtle changes to the bracelet, and the dials have had, similar to the PRX, an upgrade. This isn't a Guichet dial, but it was aesthetically what they are going for. With those dials and the sub-seconds, this is a more restrained and refined version. Why not get this watch? You have to be a little bit nitpicky, but the offset crown is not to everybody's taste. The Tsuyosa to some might also come across as trying to be a little bit more flashy and a little bit more premium than it really is. This is a great watch, but where you don't immediately know that PRX is positioned as an affordable watch, the design choices of the Citizen do signal that a little bit. That, and it's also got the Cyclops, and that's just not for everybody. Just a quick reminder to those of you that are new to the channel, please consider subscribing. It helps out the channel massively. On this channel, I talk about everything watch related. I love those little mechanical wonders. I share my thoughts around watches. I am unbiased. I'm in nobody's pocket, and I just love talking about watches. Hope to see you back again. Please subscribe. Thanks. There are tons of Royal Oaks from Audemars Piguet to choose from. Jumbos, regulars, ultra thins, the offshore, they're available in steel and gold and platinum and frosted and diamond set. The Royal Oak was the first of the classic integrated Gerald Genta models, a watch designer who was renowned in the 70s for his work. Together with the Nautilus and the Ingenieur from IWC, these three are to many what defines Gerald Genta's legacy. Royal Oaks are immaculately put together. The prices start at $30,000 and just go up from there. Everything is crisp on this watch model. The octagonal bezel is mirror polished on the flanks, and all corners sit flush and perfectly in line with the case angles. The tops are brushed. The bracelet is perfectly fitted to the case and has micro detailing of chamfers with alternating polish and brush components. The tapisserie dial, which comes in different versions depending on the Royal Oak model, is made with an AP-specific template engine, which mechanically copies from a giant template onto the dial. It's a slow, intricate process, and it leads to a dial that has a level of detailing which is head and shoulders and atmospheres above any waffle dial on a PRX or Christopher Ward. The movement is awesome. The wearing experience is exceptional. Everything is perfection. Now, you can probably tell that I'm a big fan of this watch, and I think it's deserving of it because it's a phenomenal watch. Apart from the fact that it's hard to get, then why would you not buy a watch like this? Well, because it's famous, because it's one of those baller type watches with all the connotations that that might have. But to be honest, you have to be a little bit nitpicky about it, but it might put some people off. The thing I know about these kind of overview videos is that there are always going to be people that are going to ask about the watches I didn't mention. And the fact is there are so many brands out there, so I stick to the ones I've tried, I've got good experiences with, and ones that demonstrate something important. And if there's one thing you take away from the Venezianico Arsenale, is that making cases and bracelets to a very high standard is quite common these days. This watch, depending again on the configuration, comes in at under $1,000. And if you compare it to an integrated bracelet from a high-end brand 10 years ago, you'd be hard-pressed to find a difference. Just for context, 20 years ago, the sound of a Mercedes door closing was just better sounding than some cheap entry-level car brand at the time. But today, the door closing sounds great on most cars, simply because the materials, the insulation, and sort of the manufacturing process is so relatively easy to reproduce for so little cost that there's no reason to cut corners at the cheaper end. The Venezianico $800 entry-level model has a brushed H-link style bracelet. The bracelet flanks are chamfered and polished. It's not to the quality of an AP, but it's really well done. The flank polish flows onto the case seamlessly. The bezel has a small amount of knurling. It's reminiscent of an Oris Pro Pilot X, which is a little bit more subtle. It gives it a bit of detail that raises it above a regular polished bezel. The dials are generally well executed. They've got aventurine options, meteorite, and in the base model, a finish that is Geneva striped. Also, the hands are hollowed out, which is a very nice detail. Where a brand like this skimps or has to compromise is usually the internals. The movement is a decent, serviceable Miyota. It's nothing fancy, it works, but again, if you're looking for some semblance of mechanical high horology, then this isn't it. Now, why wouldn't you get a watch like this? Three things. One, the design is, if not lifted, but then strongly inspired by Parmigiani Tonda, a watch that goes for $30,000 or more. Entry brands at this price point tend to at least lean a little on known designs, and this is no exception. Two, the knurling of the bezel is an acquired taste. And finally, it's got no seconds hand, and some people really hate not having a seconds hand. $12,000 for an IWC. That ain't cheap, dude. but it's a gorgeous watch. Just like the Royal Oak, this is a Gerald Genta design, and you buy this watch for two reasons. One, of course, because you like it, and two, because the story behind it is appealing to you. You can see the similarities to the Royal Oak and the Nautilus. The porthole design, the bracelet, all the cues are there. There are two sizes in the base model to choose from. You choose this watch over the Nautilus or the Royal Oak because of where it positions itself. The Nautilus is the dressy upscale option. The Royal Oak is by far the sportiest of the bunch, and the Ingenieur does come across as an engineer's watch. The porthole design is lifted straight from a ship. The dial has a crisscross pattern which is very Nikola Tesla. The crown guards are more substantial and also emphasize a more tool-forward aesthetic. The $12,000 is expensive, but it's not as bad as some people would have you believe. The case itself is a multi-part construction made up of the bezel, the outer case, the inner case, and the case back. Additionally, the crown guards are separately constructed and attached to the case from the inside. Now, why would you care about these things? Well, just take the crown guards. Because they're attached separately, you can get a case flank with a much more even and consistent brushing across the entire flank. This also applies to the bezel. It's multiple small details that make for a more complex design. They cost a bit more to make, but also just make it that much more of a complete solution. The movement inside is also excellent with 120 hours of power reserve. Now, why wouldn't you buy this watch? Some people, and in fairness, I've been there myself, old Ingenieurs had inconsistently positioned porthole holes in the bezel. That made for a more irregular and real-feeling design, where the Ingenieur in the modern iteration can feel a little bit stale and over-engineered. The standard bracelet also doesn't have an easy adjust mechanism, which is a deal breaker for some people. Let's get the why not buy it question out of the way with this one first. Three things. The bezel feels like it's lifted from the Royal Oak. That's a deal breaker for some. The bracelet has an odd compromise kind of end link, which ruins the seamlessness of the integration. There's this little inset link that just feels off. And for the price, a soap rod movement is just a little bit below spec compared to what you can get from other brands. But these are little nitpicky details. Again, this is a super classy heritage design on the sportier and more engineer-forward side of designs. Nevada go for dome crystal, which is a strong personal take that gives it a lot more retro vibe than a lot of other current options out there. You've got interesting case detailing, and you've got a textured dial for visual interest. It's an excellent option for $1,500. Affordable is a stretch for a $17,000 watch, but Chopard are heavy hitter, high horology brand that get none of the attention that AP, Patek, or Vacheron get. You get the Alpine Eagle because you want something different and you want an integrated bracelet that is off the beaten track. Chopard have serious watchmaking credentials, and the Chopard Alpine Eagle even won an award at the GPHG Awards in 2025. Here you're dealing with seriously impressive finishing on par or even better than an AP or Vacheron. The design is highly distinctive with the inset screws, 2 at a time at 3, 6, 9, and 12. It's like the porthole of the Ingenieur, but with a twist. The bracelet is a 3-link design, but it's like no other. The center links are narrow and raised above the other links. Personally, I always think of it as this mid-barrier on a highway. The dials are often where Chopard shine, and even on the entry option, the curved radial dial is one that you want to look at and spend time admiring. If you don't get this watch, it's because of the bezel and the bracelet. It's an acquired taste. Personally, I think it's fabulous, but it doesn't conform to the aesthetics of balance that so many other brands go for. It's just a little bit off-center aesthetically, so choose wisely. But if you do, you get a watch that is like no other. Now, a watch that I own and have done a full review of. The Santos is, to me, one of the most versatile watches on the market today. It can work as a sporty watch. It can work as a dressy watch. It even works, not quite like a tool watch, but it totally flies with jeans, a t-shirt, and Dana boots. It's available in 2 sizes. No, wait, 3. There's a quartz in small, and a medium mechanical, and a large mechanical. It's available in steel, and now the large size is also available in titanium. The signature Cartier Roman numerals are to be found on the dial. The hands are blued as per tradition, and you also have the cabochon crown. This is an ultra slim watch that goes for around $7,750 and up. The slimness is a key feature. It will go under any cuff, except of course for, Jersey Shore tight cuffs. This watch just sits perfectly on the wrist. And I've said this a million times. There is just something so very confident about a man that's not afraid to wear a Cartier. There are only 2 reasons to not get this watch. First, the bezel on the steel model is a scratch magnet. It's not a different metal from any other polished steel watch, but the flatness of the bezel and the exposure just makes scratches incredibly noticeable. The other reason, Square watches wear a little bit weird. For some people, the medium is going to feel too small and the large is going to feel way too big. You have to try it on to be sure. We are now back in the more affordable price range. This is Teddy Baldessar's collab of choice, Brew and the Brew Metric. It's a Mecha Quartz chronograph. What's a Mecha Quartz chronograph, you ask? It's a quartz-based movement with a mechanical type chronograph on top, which is actually kind of cool. Brew are a US-based brand, so there's none of that Swiss-made mumbo-jumbo for this watch. What Brew offer is a very 1970s design. The tapered single visible link construction makes for a very sleek look, and with the squared case, we're solidly in the Starsky and Hutch time period. It's 36 millimeters by 41.5 millimeters. It's a pretty big watch, all things considered, but the case and seemingly lugless design lets it sit very well on the wrist. There are multiple options to choose from, with the retro dial being my favorite. Construction is solid. Quick adjust and easy adjust are not things you get, but you can't really expect that always at this price point. You'd get this watch if you were also considering an Autodromo or a Timex potentially, or even some Swatch watches. You get more for your money than Swatch, but it is in that playful space that this watch sits. Why wouldn't you get it? Well, if you don't like Teddy, I suppose. But why wouldn't you like Teddy? I like Teddy. He's the Teddy. You have to like Teddy. And apart from that, well, it's the 430 date window and square watches. 70s styling with color accents here, there, and everywhere make for something very distinctive. And you might tire of that level of pizzazz over time. Christopher Ward are an independent brand that have been having quite a few good years in a row. It all started, hype-wise, with the Bel Canto a few years back, but the ball really started rolling fast with the release of the Christopher Ward 12. $1,500 and up, depending on the model. There's a base model in 38 millimeters, 40 millimeters, and there's also a titanium model. Christopher Ward's claim to fame is essentially two things. They prioritize offering really well-spec'd watches at competitive prices. And they make edgier upscale offerings of those same watches, like the Bel Canto or the 12 Loco. The base models are incredibly solidly put together and are among the best put together for the price. The multifaceted bezel is incredibly well finished and has a level of detailing you didn't see on watches at this price point 5 years ago. Machining of case and bracelet are of a very high standard, and the dials with their waffle and wave patterns are really well executed. They are not to the standard of an AP Tapisserie dial, but they are attractive. For the most part, Christopher Ward use Sellita movements. They are workhorses that give you 42 hours of power reserve, good shock resistance, and in the premium versions, like the titanium model, they also are accurate and are spec'd to COSC standards. So why not get a Christopher Ward? Two reasons. It's got a lot in common with the Chapek Antarctique, which in every way is a superior watch, but if you don't like the design overlaps, then that's entirely okay. The second reason, Christopher Ward are a little bit on the hype side. They do only sell 40-ish thousand watches a year, so the odds of you bumping into someone wearing one are small, but it is a very popular choice at the moment that might put some people off. Apart from that, this is a sportier leaning integrated watch that will tick a lot of boxes for a lot of people. We might as well take the Chapek Antarctique now. Now, what more do you get for almost $25,000 more? The first thing you do is you flip over the watch and you look at the display, case back, and the movement under it. This movement is one of my absolute favorites in integrated watches at the moment, and it is for numerous reasons. They use a micro rotor, which in itself is very cool, but it also allows you to see the movement in its entirety. There's nothing in the way of the rest of the movement. The movement, as opposed to so many other silver galvanized movements with gold accents, is a black, dark gray, carbon kind of look. There's just something about gold on black that makes this movement pop in a way that a regular plated movement doesn't. Then you have these 4 skeletonized mini bridges that are both industrial in feel, but they also open up the gear train for display. They've minimized the sizes of the different bridges that just make for something much more open, something more industrial, and honestly much more mechanical. On the other side, a dial, a case, a bracelet, which is just phenomenal, and compared to a Parmigiani, has a lot more going on. This has a statement piece look to it. And why wouldn't you get it? I think the only legitimate reason would be the bracelet links. The C-links are an acquired taste, if for no other reason than we are just used to H-links and 3-link bracelets. This is just different, and it takes some getting used to. $2,500-ish, give or take. I'm not going to be super precise about that because tariffs and their impact on pricing just make it not worth being super specific. If you watch this video now and then 3 months later, then there could be a 20% price difference potentially. But the watch I want to talk about is the High Life from Frederic Constant. Frederic Constant generally have watches that are less sporty in their appeal than the offerings from Christopher Ward and others. There's a more dressy, old-school charm to Frederic Constant's designs. The cases are a little bit softer and a little bit more rounded. There are COSC and non-COSC versions available. The model I gravitate towards is the one I've tried most often, which is the 39mm, 11mm thick with a blue dial. The center links are polished and has coincidental similarities to an Ingenieur bracelet. The case has ever so slightly rounded flanks. There are no crown guards and the bezel is a domed, full polished affair. It's very dapper and it has a display case back. And there's a Sellita movement inside with some Frederic Constant adjustments, including a bespoke rotor. So why not get this watch? Well, some of the dials might not be to your taste. There are quite a few with a globe motif that Frederic Constant are very in love with. I could personally do without. The basic dials feel a little bit flat to me. I'm missing a pure sunray to choose from. The 39mm Baume & Mercier Riviera has a polished and satin finished stainless steel dodecagonal case protected by a scratch-resistant sapphire crystal. The dials are usually really well done with fully luminous and gilded options or even deep smoky blues. Baume put a lot of work into some really special dials. They don't solely default to your classic sunrays. The crown usually, and I say usually because there might be a version that doesn't have it, that I haven't noticed, but usually has an inset blue accent color. It reminds me a little of those O-rings you find in some plumbing, but in a good way. It's got a 3-link bracelet with a toolless quick release. The bezel is a little bit royal oaky, but it's not like AP have a patent on multi-sided faceted bezels. The 100822 also has the Fleurier 120R movement that you also find in the IWC Ingenieur that costs more than double. There are other differences to the watches, but movement-wise, they both originate from the same machines. This is a bold watch, one of the bolder ones in general on this list, and despite being on paper 39mm, this watch does present large. Why wouldn't you buy it? Personally, I think the bezel with the Torque type screws is a detail too far. Also, the crown with the inset blue O-ring is prominent. I'd also not suggest any of the non-120R movement models. I think the pricing on them is too high, but for the premium movement version, I think you're in a very decent value spot. I like the Alpina for a very straightforward reason. The case design and bracelet are very manly. The almost square base case is very engineering forward. I was going to compare it to a Cybertruck, but I didn't like the Cybertruck. I think it's an absurd vehicle. So I think the Alpina makes me think more of a Lamborghini Countach. You know, that very blocky, angular, brutalist kind of look is just really, really cool. And apart from maybe Bell & Ross, very few integrated bracelets go all the way to that aesthetic extreme. It's priced reasonably well. It's not class leading, but it's not egregiously overpriced. The movement is Sellita, almost as usual, I'd say. There aren't that many dials to choose from, but your standard blue is in there and it's a very good option. Why wouldn't you get it? Well, same reason as the Baume & Mercier. The inset color of the crown and then the dials all have a triangle pattern that to some feel a little bit overpowering. This isn't a subtle watch. Finally, some also-rans, which are all decent options, but I didn't pick them for a full run-through for a variety of reasons. The Timex Q is just too flimsy to me. If it were in a beta watch category, I suggest it, but considering the pure quality of a lot of integrated watches these days, I don't feel it's compelling against the competition. The Bell & Ross BR05 for somewhere around $4,500, $5,500, I think is too expensive. The movement inside is a heavily customized Sellita SW300. It's a fair bit better than an SW200 and a regular SW300, but the price I feel should be closer to $4,000 or less. Bulgari Octo Finissimo. Fabulous watch. I've owned it. It's just really, really sharp because of its thinness. It sits so close to the wrist, and that's a dream. But the edges, they chafed. And the finishing is super, super matte. And I don't think they've quite hit the right balance in all the base models. Maurice Lacroix Icon. Great watch. A little bit expensive compared to what you can also get. And also, I'm just not a fan of the bezel. And that's just a preference thing. Girard-Perregaux. It's a great watch, but I think the complicated and ceramic models are more compelling. I can't quite get myself to recommend those base steel models. The green ceramic though, or the two-tone, absolutely. Zenith Skyline. I just don't like the offset 9 o'clock sub-second style. I hate it with a passion. The Zenith Classics were so much better. But a ceramic white-blue skeletonized style, I get that as one of the very few skeleton watches I'd actually buy. Moser Streamliner. Honestly, I just don't like the design. If you do, then it's a great watch. I just can't get my own personal dislike. It wears super bulbously on my wrist, and Moses' minimalistic but actually maximalist design language sometimes grates with me. The Nautilus, there's no steel model, and I'm sure as heck not recommending the Cubitus. It's a meh watch at best. Last one, Vacheron Constantin Overseas. And okay, I do recommend that watch. I was just being a bit of a troll because I guarantee you somebody was getting ready in the comments to write, you left out the Overseas. It's a fabulous watch, and I don't feel more need saying. And there we have it. A ton of integrated watches with different price points, all with their own distinct hallmarks and personalities. They're all a great starting point. And as always though, never buy a watch just based on a recommendation, not mine and not any other YouTubers. You go down to the store, you wear it, you try it, and then you leave and you come back another day if you have continued to keep thinking about it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe. Cheers.